The internet has afforded a space where the relationship between attention and power has been increased, by thousands of times. And so all of a sudden, people understanding that how attention can be a weapon, right? And attention can be a way to dominate and can be a way to seduce. Now you have 100,000 people, 100,000 people under you that can act as your body. That how attention can be a weapon, right? And attention can be a way to dominate and can be a way to seduce. Now you have 100,000 people, 100,000 people under you that can act as your body.
The internet's kind of like Tolkien's The One Ring. It's just this magnifier, and it can magnify, for the hobbits, it magnifies his sneakiness and they can become invisible. But for Sauron, it magnifies his cruelty and his might. Step back and really reflect and think about, what's our relationship to the One Ring, and should we be picking it up, and should we be more wary of it, and things like that. And I do worry that we are running this grand social experiment with social media and with phones on ourselves and the next generation. There's already some preliminary evidence that's having an impact, and we don't know what this is going to do. We're doing something that is 10 times more powerful than the printing press. And the printing press unleashed forces that then turned to bloody religious war in Europe in an unforeseen fashion.
That how attention can be a weapon, right? And attention can be a way to dominate and can be a way to seduce. Now you have 100,000 people, 100,000 people under you that can act as your body. That how attention can be a weapon, right? And attention can be a way to dominate and can be a way to seduce. Now you have 100,000 people, 100,000 people under you that can act as your body.
A hyper object. That there are things like, the internet, global warming, evolution. They're realities, but they're not like bodies. They're not spatially temporally located. They're distributed, right? And we can't actually sort of conceive of them. We can have terms referring to them, but we can't sort of, if you allow me the science fiction reference, we can't grok them. We can't sort of really get. And so but they're not abstract things over there, right? They're insinuating themselves into the very fiber of our being.
They have more subtle bodies, to use a religious term. This is, when I look at the internet and I look at social media, it's the closest thing I have to understanding a God acting in the world. When I say this, a God acting in the world, in the sense that like a pagan deity that is embodied in ritual and in practice and in nodes of attention, because it's just, there's no one controlling. But it still seems to have a will and seems to be going towards a telos, and everybody sees it. Nobody can stop it. And everybody says, well, at least I'm going to get what I can get as I watch this God kind of move towards its sacrifice or whatever's going on. But everybody's like, well, at least I can get something out of it while it's happening.
And I think the relationship that a lot of people have to the internet is properly understood as a religious relationship. I mean, the internet serves as an oracle. Think about that. I mean, think about the devotion people. They want to live in its world, like you said, they have a sense of it having a life and power of their own that people want to be in service to. They also want to appropriate that power. It's almost like ball or something from the Old Testament. I think that's again, just to circle it back. I think that's again, right. The reason why these things are coming together, and what we're talking about the internet, and what we're talking about this meaning, wisdom movement, religion, those again, they might seem like opposites or in opposition, but there's a deep underlying common ground that they're both pointing to again, right? This phenomena. I don't think it's a coincidence that the internet and the shared universes of Marvel and all of this are also occurring at the same time as this return to an understanding of the depth and importance of religion. I think those are completely, they belong together in terms of a unified explanation.
Yeah. There's an interesting thing that I've been realizing recently is that one of the aspects that seems to have happened in Christianity, but probably has happened in Buddhism as well, because it seems similar, is the understanding that ultimately the sacrifice is a sacrifice of, we say a sacrifice of worship. That's how the Christians would present it. Like when we go to Vesper service, we talk about the evening sacrifice, and it's a sacrifice of worship. And it's to actually understand that sacrifice is attention. Sacrifice is attention. Yes. That's what sacrifice is, right? And so it's the way that you attend. When you attend, you kind of give your attention to the thing that you're attending to, and at the same time, you're also sacrificing the things next to them, right? You're focusing.
Yes.
And that seems to be something which, with the internet, is now accelerating so much that it's almost impossible not to notice that's what it is. That these gods exist through attention. And if you don't give them attention, then they weaken. If you give them attention, then they become stronger. We really do have this idea that, as we move away from the physical sacrificial system in ancient times, we move towards a world where we understand sacrifice as attention itself.
I think that is so consonant with the model that's emerging by Wall and others, Wu, on the cog sci of attention. We're moving from a rather simple model of attention as a filter to that what's actually happening in attention is prioritization. That the function of attention is to prioritize. And that means, I think quite correctly, like you said, that, good attention is proper prioritization, if you think of it that way, that you're prioritizing the things that should be given priority. First things first, right? And that people think that just means the first thing on your list is the first thing you should do. That's not what Aristotle means.
No.
He means that the task is to realize what the first principles are and to prioritize them over things that are less central to being and to truth, etc. And so, and I think of that as the virtue of reverence. And I think reverence is to properly realize the relevance of something that should be given a priority, even over yourself.
The internet is like a monster. The internet is a being that lives through attention. The internet is like a monster. The internet, it requires our attention to exist. The internet is like a monster. The internet is a being that lives through attention. The internet is like a monster. The internet, it requires our attention to exist.
I can see why notions of worship and sacrifice are bound up together. There's two sides of the same coin of the idea of trying to give proper priority, even over yourself. And that's where it starts. That's where you start to get the notions of sacrifice and worship, which like I say, if you go away from sacrifice as killing something, right, which is usually focal in people's mind, to this idea of prioritization and a recognition and acknowledgement of priority, then I think I'm in agreement with what you're talking about.
Yeah, and the internet is like a monster. The internet is a being that lives through attention. The internet is like a monster. The internet, it requires our attention to exist. Like the internet is like a monster. The internet is a being that lives through attention. The internet is like a monster. The internet, it requires our attention to exist. Yeah, and the idea of killing something is always the wrong way of understanding sacrifice, at least at the first, let's say, at the first level. It often involves killing something, but not necessarily. There are sacrifices of grain, sacrifices of oil, all these different sacrifices. It has to do with offering up. That you take something that's precious and then you give it up towards something which is above you, and that's exactly what attention is, and that's what prioritization is. You give it up towards something which is above you, and that's exactly what attention is, and that's what prioritization is.